Graduating from college, Jaime Reyes, Xolo Marireña, returns back to his family where he finds out his family's situation isn't that great. Hoping to change their outcome, he gets a job where his sister works, but after a small confrontation with Victoria Cord, Susan Sarandon, they get fired. Trying to fix his mistakes, he finds himself at the wrong place at the wrong time, ending up with the Scarab. Being chosen, he now has to face his destiny on being the new Blue Beetle. In my opinion, I believe that Blue Beetle was a cheaply made movie that although it followed the structure, it didn't try doing anything new. It remained within the basic structure that a lot of the aspects became muddled and uninteresting because it lacked character and motivation. For example, many characters were very bland, making their actions not as impactful as it could have been. Many flaws are present in the story that leaves you questioning what exactly is going on. And lastly, the villain is two-dimensional and uninspiring that it causes the whole plot to be boring and not worth watching. In short, bad writing. Blue Beetle opens in a cold mountain range as Carapax Raul Trujillo leads an expedition to uncover the Scarab for Victoria Cord. Finally finding it after 15 years, we get a close-up of the Scarab, then cut to the opening credits. This opening is not effective for two reasons. One, it explains nothing. It doesn't introduce our antagonist and her motives/backstory properly, nor does it introduce the plot of the movie, nor the inevitable journey our protagonist will go through. All it does is show the MacGuffin that will come into play later without any explanation. And having a montage within the opening credits to explain some of the story does not count. And two, it does not set the tone. All I gathered is that the antagonist uncovered the MacGuffin, but I do not know where it's gonna go, nor the tone of the movie. Obviously, going into the movie, I know it's a superhero movie, but I did not take that from the opening image. We continue the story as our protagonist arrives in Pamela City, after graduating college to receive a bunch of bad news. Trying to support his family, he accepts a job where his sister works. Though stepping up for Jennifer Cord, Bruna Marquezine, Jaime and his sister Milagro, Belisa Escobedo, get fired. In an attempt to right a wrong, Jennifer tells Jaime to go to Cord Tower, in the hopes that she can offer him a job. However, when he arrives, Jennifer gives him the blue Scarab inside a burger box, since security measures are in place as the building is being locked down because Jennifer stole the Scarab off of Victoria. It wouldn't be until Jaime touches the Scarab after getting it back from his family that it activates, choosing him as its host, making him the Blue Beetle, also known as the Catalyst Moment. After he dons his suit, it takes him for a test flight. I feel that due to the suit being sentient, it diminishes any stakes the movie had. From the Catalyst to arguably Act 3, Jaime is a passive character, reacting to everything the suit is making him do. Therefore, in every situation he's in, it isn't him actively making decisions. The suit does a lot of the heavy lifting in every situation, whether it be fighting, strategic thinking, or using its power. This means that Jaime doesn't learn how to utilize his new powers as the story progresses. He isn't actively choosing to fight or selecting his arsenal. But worst of all, Jaime doesn't have much character depth and development because he's only reacting. Although he learns to accept Kachira and his destiny as the Blue Beetle, and they synchronize, through the movie he's still reacting to all the things going on around him, making this change not as impactful as it could have been. To further explain what I mean, let's compare the flight scene in Blue Beetle to a similar scene in Iron Man. In Blue Beetle, out of the blue, the suit goes for a test run, flying around town while Jaime is yelling, reacting to everything happening. He cannot and does not try to take control of the Scarab or the suit. Whereas in Iron Man, when he does his first test flight, he's the one in control. He's being active instead of passive, and when things don't go well, he learns from them. As a result, we as the audience don't really root for him, yet, I suppose, because of his passive nature, and because nothing has happened yet. We don't follow the protagonist through this journey because there isn't a strong foundation for us to care. At this point in the story, we should get a sense of the imminent danger Jaime is going to be in, or at least how much of a threat the villain is. But we get neither one, nor do we ever get it. The antagonist was not a well-written one. One of the biggest driving forces a story has is its antagonistic one. Without the antagonist, there isn't much story. The antagonist is a driving force for our hero to go through a change. Sadly, Victoria does not provide any of these driving forces because not only is she not much of a threat, she is, for the most part, only barking orders. Carapax is the one in the front line, attacking Jaime, and as a result, Victoria doesn't have a sense of character or personality that makes the audience care for the story. She's just another generic villain wanting to weaponize what the hero possesses. One way this can be fixed is to make the audience dislike the antagonist, that they root for the protagonist. Typically it is done by making the antagonist not have compassion, murderous, and or driven by hate, or the latter. Let the antagonist have depth, allowing the audience to have some sort of emotional connection towards him or her, so that we understand their reasonings, where they're coming from, while altogether understanding it's wrong. I did not get that from Victoria. At this point, we don't even know much about the antagonist, her motives, or her end goals. Why does she want the Olmec? How does she know about the beetle? She is just a blank character following the structure of a generic corporate villain wanting to militarize something. Using this trope isn't bad as long as you go one step further and build upon it. But unfortunately, much like any other aspect of the movie, they kept to the basics and did not build up on anything. And as a result, you get a weak villain we've seen several times with no true character motivations and plot holes. For the rest of the movie, I'll be very brief. Jaime's family was able to utilize Jennifer's father's machinery and gadgets fairly easy, which was very daunting to see. It just felt like lazy writing at this point. Sanchez's, Jose Francisco Morales Rivera de la Cruz, Harvey Guillen's sacrifice should have been impactful, but it wasn't. If this character would have been established before, get to know him better, other than just someone who's there obeying Victoria, correcting her that his name isn't Sanchez, this scene would have played out better, because then the audience would care for his well-being, making his sacrifice mean more and not come across as just lazy writing. He could have locked the door and showed Blue Beetle the way until ending up being caught by Carapax, or even Victoria. Because even now, Victoria hasn't really done anything. The fighting was decent at least. It was pretty entertaining seeing both Carapax and Jaime fight it off, though since I'm unaware of the character from the comics, I do have a lot of questions in regards to his power. But that's a separate issue. Ignacio's inability to recall his past could have also been impactful, but again missed the mark. This detail ruined his character because even though we've seen him as a threat to Blue Beetle, it technically wasn't him making that decision. He was in some sort of trance controlled by Victoria, which sounds like a good foundation for some good scenes between them, but we never get any of that, but the simple, I can fix you, look at what I've done to you. When his memories are unlocked and we see his past, we understand his character better. However, because he didn't remember any of it, it felt more like who we've seen was a different person. And yes, technically, I know he was. What could have been better was that his recollection of the events that happened were wrong, and something Jaime does helps him remember who the actual villain is because Victoria did the same thing to Jaime. And now the final piece of the puzzle is unlocked and he understands why he holds that necklace dear to him. Because we've seen him hold the necklace, so we think it has some significance. But if he didn't remember the past, then why did he have the necklace? We never saw that until the end, and therefore his previous actions in relation to the necklace don't add up. Apart from that, he would actively do something that would make this change happen. Another thing I like to point out is how there were various usages of words comparing the Scarab to a computing mechanism, with words such as rebooting, code, or codes to system. It felt like two ideas clashing. How can a code be extracted from a living entity? Is it actually a living entity? I know they mentioned it's alien, but what exactly is a Scarab? Why does it need to be rebooted? Or is it a computer that somehow synchronizes with the host? I don't know this character from the comics, so the movie should have answered these questions for people who don't know the character like me. But it sadly doesn't. Overall, Blue Beetle is a movie that followed the skeletal structure of a movie and remained there. Due to its poorly written execution, it fails to grasp the audience's attention enough to follow along. In this trope of a movie, nothing new was added to give it nuance or uniqueness. Character actions get muddled and hold no significance to them. The antagonist wasn't much of a threat, and her actions and end goal were just ridiculous and uninteresting. Though in the end, I was still somewhat entertained, at the end of the day, I cannot help but realize the simplicity the story is and of its consequences.